The quest to build muscle and strength is not always just about lifting the heaviest weights. One of the stealthiest ways to get comfortable with bigger weights than you thought possible is something called eccentric overload. Essentially, we're going to do the exact opposite. We're going to lower heavy weights. And if you master this, it just may be the cheat codes that you need to get crazy strong. So what is eccentric overload? To understand what it is, you have to first understand the two main contractions that go into every lift. The one you think of most when you're training is the concentric contraction. This is when a muscle is shortening under load, and we use it to raise the weight, as you do during a bench press or a biceps curl when you're lifting up. But there's also something called an eccentric contraction. This occurs when you're lowering a weight under load, muscles lengthening but still generating force. You do this as the dumbbell lowers to your hip on a biceps curl, or as the bar lowers to your chest on a bench press. No matter how strong you are with your classic concentric contractions, you're almost always going to be stronger with an eccentric contraction. This means that you can lower more weight with control than you can lift that weight. Utilizing this extra strength when lowering a weight is at the heart of eccentric overload. Your goal on an eccentric overload lift: maximize your eccentric strength by lowering a heavy weight than what you might have just lifted. Here's how you'll do this. You'll lift a load just as you would during a traditional workout, albeit with a little bit of assistance that we'll show you later. Then you'll lower slowly, aiming to lower for 3 to 5 seconds per rep. This sustained lowering is where you're overloading the eccentric on the lift, and it's where you're going to get so much stronger. There are plenty of ways to train with eccentric overload if you're training with a partner or some extra fancy equipment like chains or even a tonal cable machine. But if you're just using basic equipment by yourself, there are two main tactics you can perform to get eccentric overload into your workouts. The first of these is the most common. You'll lift a weight with the single arm, as you might during a biceps curl, but you'll let your off arm assist you in getting the weight up to your chest. Then you'll lower with just a single arm. By using two arms to lift a weight, you set yourself up to eccentrically overload the side that's lowering. Another form of eccentric overload involves combining two lifts, usually an easier lift that'll help you get the weights up, and then you'll lower slowly with a more taxing isolation lift. Take, for example, an eccentric overload skull crusher. You may start each rep by slowly lowering the weights with really good skull crusher form so we isolate our triceps. After each lower, you'll shift the weights back to the starting point, but instead of trying to do a skull crusher upwards and get that contraction, we will just do a close grip press. That way it's a little bit easier and we can get ourselves set up for another eccentric overload rep. Here we're really taxing that triceps motion as we lower, then we're skipping to the much easier motion so we can get more out of it. Both approaches can be effective depending on your training goals. Eccentric overload serves two main purposes in your training. The first is underrated. Because you're focusing on the negative portion of the rep and lowering slowly, you're letting the muscles you're training reach the stretch position and linger in that position for longer. You wind up spending more time under tension in those stretch positions, and that is increasingly linked to muscle growth, so doing eccentric overload exercises potentially creates more room for muscle growth. Eccentric overload motions also can help your body and your mind acclimate to loads much heavier than the ones you think you're capable of lifting. For example, you may only be able to curl 25-pound dumbbells with good form, but you can grab a 30 or 35-pound dumbbell, have your other arm assist to the top of the curling motion, then lower slowly. You could also cheat a barbell curl to the top position, then lower slowly. Either of these is going to prime your nervous system to eventually handle heavier weights for curls. If you've hit a plateau in your training with the big lift, or you just want to find a way to go heavier, using this technique can really help you bust through those plateaus. Either way, know that this method of training can be extra taxing, so we want to use it judiciously. Limit your use of eccentric overload techniques to a maximum of 3 to 4 sets per workout. This can take a couple forms. Maybe you apply eccentric overload techniques to the final set of every exercise in your workout. Or maybe you choose one exercise and use eccentric overload on every single set of that exercise. If you're using them to acclimate to heavier weights, no matter what, make sure you do your eccentric overloading at the beginning of your workout. There's also one final option. If you train full body workouts, say 3 to 4 times a week, take one day out of the week and focus on all eccentric overload techniques for 3 to 4 exercises. Now let's go over a couple of my favorite eccentric overload lifts for your workouts. You can do these within your regular workouts in one of the formats I just told you about, Or we can combine them all together into a once a week eccentric overload session. There are a whole ton of eccentric overload exercises out there, so you have multiple options. The whole goal is just to make sure you're going super heavy during that eccentric portion of the lift, and then we're just going to get the weight back up as quickly as we can and as efficiently as we can so that we can do another eccentric rep. Either way, you're setting yourself up to build a ton of muscle, so let's go over these 4 lifts. The first of these is the push press to eccentric lower. Here, what we're gonna do is we're going to use our hips and explosively drive into an overhead position with a standard military press. From there, once we've done that, and because we had our hips involved, we were able to move that heavy weight. Now we're gonna slowly lower for 3 to 4 seconds. This is a really, really great way to, 1, bulletproof your shoulders, and 2, set yourself up to military press heavy weights in the long run. It's also a fun lift because we get to be explosive on the way up. Another move I really, really like, this is a great biceps exercise. We're gonna go cheat curl. You can do this with dumbbells or you can do this with a straight bar. We're going to essentially get our hips involved, almost make this a little bit of a power clean, get the bar up to our chest, then we're going to really tighten everything up, tighten up your abs, your glutes, and you're gonna slowly lower back down. This is a really awesome way to subject your biceps to a ton of stress. The best move you can do for triceps when it comes to eccentric overload is something called a close grip press into an eccentric skull crusher. So lie on the bench as if we're pressing. We're gonna keep our elbows close to our body. You're gonna press up powerfully, and you can be explosive during this too. And then you're going to shift your elbows back ever so slightly, make sure they stay close to your body. And all we're gonna do is bend at the elbow joint. Think of lowering the dumbbell slowly towards your shoulders. This is awesome for your triceps. You also get that nice little explosive when we're getting the close grip press, and we get a ton of eccentric work at the elbow joint to really attack our triceps. And then the 4th option here, a really good pulling exercise for you. We're going to go double arm pull down. So we're gonna get on a pull down setup. You're gonna pull down on a single D handle with both arms. Then you're going to release with one arm. Kind of make sure you really own that position, tighten up your abs, and you're going to go up slowly. On all of these exercises, you wanna make sure you're getting that 3, 4, even 5-second lower, because the goal of eccentric overload is to spend a ton of time under tension fighting that heavy weight all the way up. It's here that you have this amazing chance to build a whole ton of strength, and again, to just really acclimate your body to moving heavier weights than you thought possible. Once you merge this tactic with your regular training, you're gonna get so much stronger, and you're also gonna have a ton of fun in your workouts, because this is a great way to just make sure you're going heavier than you thought possible. And when you do that, you wind up feeling great from a strength perspective, and mentally, you also know you're really strong too.